In the heart of the kingdom of Suwanda, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows over the great palace. It was a land ruled by kings descended from a long line of warrior leaders, bound by tradition and guided by the spirits of their ancestors. In this moment, the weight of those traditions rested on the shoulders of a young prince named Dorinia, the only son of King Zoloni, ruler of Suwanda. Dorinia had grown up knowing that one day, he would inherit the crown, but to do so, he would have to face the ancient rite of passage, the trials of the crown. The most formidable of these trials was retrieving the royal staff from the cave of the native lion, hidden deep within the dense forest that encircled the kingdom. No king of Suwanda had ever ascended the throne without first retrieving the staff, a symbol of divine right and the favor of the ancestors. The day had come. Are you ready, my son? King Zoloni's voice was deep and resonant, filled with the authority of his station, but also with the tenderness of a father. Dorinia stood tall, dressed in a tunic of woven gold threads, a symbol of his royal status. His chestnut skin glistened under the flickering light of the palace torches, and his eyes, though determined, carried a weight of uncertainty. He had heard tales of the trials from his father and the elders. The journey ahead was perilous, and many had failed before him. Those who succeeded were few, but they were revered, not only for their courage but also for their love of the people. I am ready, Dorinia replied, though his heart beat with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The queen, his mother, stood nearby, silent but her presence a source of strength. She approached Dorinia and placed a hand on his shoulder. Remember, my son, the staff is not just a symbol of power. It is a beacon of hope for our people. You must be guided by your love for them, for only them will you succeed. Dorinia nodded, absorbing her words as the wisdom of his ancestors. The people of Suwanda depended on their leader to protect them, not through force alone but through wisdom, compassion, and the strength of spirit. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his responsibility but also the fierce determination that had been instilled in him since childhood. The time had come to leave the palace. As Dorinia stepped outside the gates, the people of Suwanda gathered to watch their prince embark on his journey. They chanted ancient prayers, invoking the spirits of the ancestors to guide him. He raised his hand in acknowledgement, then turned toward the forest that loomed on the horizon. Beyond those trees lay the cave of the native lion, and with it, his fate. The first part of the trial had begun. Dorinia trekked through the forest, guided only by the light of the moon. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the rustling of leaves, punctuated by the occasional cry of a nocturnal creature. Every step he took brought him deeper into the heart of the forest, where the trees grew denser and the path less certain. His father had told him that the forest itself was the first of many obstacles, a place where the spirits tested a prince's resolve. For hours, Dorinia pressed on, his every sense alert. The path was treacherous, filled with sharp stones and tangled roots that threatened to trip him. But he moved forward, driven by the memory of his people's faces, their hope resting on his success. Suddenly, a sound pierced the stillness of the night, a low growl, deep and menacing. Dorinia stopped in his tracks, his hand instinctively moving to the small dagger at his waist. Out of the shadows stepped a massive hyena, its eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Its body was thick with muscle, and its jaw snapped hungrily, as if sensing the prince's vulnerability. Dorinia's heart pounded in his chest. He knew he could not outrun the beast. His mind raced as he remembered the stories his grandmother had told him about the hyenas of the forest, cunning creatures who could sense fear. If he ran, it would only give chase. He had to face it. Summoning his courage, Dorinia took a step forward, locking eyes with the creature. He raised his hand slowly, trying to appear larger than he was. I am Prince Dorinia of Suwanda, he said, his voice steady though his heart trembled. I come not to fight, but to seek the favor of the ancestors. The hyena snarled, taking a step closer, but something in Dorinia's calm seemed to give it pause. It sniffed the air, circling him warily. The prince remained still, his body tense but his spirit unyielding. After what felt like an eternity, the hyena let out a final growl and slinked back into the shadows, disappearing into the night. Dorinia exhaled, his muscles relaxing as the immediate danger passed. He had passed the first test, he had faced his fear and prevailed. As he continued through the forest, the path became even more treacherous. At times, it was barely a path at all, just a narrow stretch of earth surrounded by towering trees and tangled vines. But Dorinia pressed on, guided by the faint whispers of the wind and the glow of the moon above. After hours of walking, the forest finally began to thin, and in the distance, he saw the rocky outline of the mountain that housed the cave of the native lion. But the hardest part of his journey was yet to come. The cave of the native lion, shrouded in mystery and legend, awaited him. It was said that no one, not even the bravest warriors, could face the lion without a pure heart. Many who had attempted the trial before him had been lost in the depths of the cave, never to return. Dorinia stood at the mouth of the cave, feeling the cool air that flowed from within, a stark contrast to the warm forest behind him. He steeled himself for what was to come, remembering his mother's words. His love for his people must guide him. He stepped inside. The cave was dark, its walls lined with ancient carvings of the ancestors, their eyes watching over him. The air was thick with the scent of moss and earth, and the only sound was the soft drip of water from the stalactites above. As he ventured deeper, the darkness became more oppressive, but Dorinia pressed on, his hand trailing along the cold stone wall to guide him. Then, he heard it, a low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the cave. Dorinia's heart raced, but he did not falter. He knew this was the final trial. The native lion, guardian of the royal staff, awaited him. He rounded a corner and found himself in a vast chamber, the ceiling so high it disappeared into the darkness. In the center of the chamber, lying atop a stone pedestal, was the royal staff, its golden surface gleaming faintly in the dim light. But between Dorinia and the staff stood a lion. The creature was massive, its fur a deep, burnished gold that seemed to shimmer in the darkness. Its eyes glowed like embers, and its muscles rippled beneath its sleek coat. It stared at Dorinia, its gaze piercing, as if it could see into his very soul. Dorinia knew that he could not fight the lion. To do so would be to dishonor the ancestors and the trial itself. Instead, he took a deep breath and stepped forward, his heart filled with the love he had for his people. "I do not come to take the staff for power," he said, his voice steady. "I come to serve my people, to lead them with wisdom and compassion, as our ancestors have done before me." The lion growled, but it did not move. Dorinia held its gaze, his heart steady now. He could feel the presence of the ancestors around him, guiding him, and in that moment, he knew that the trial was not about defeating the lion, but about proving his worth. Slowly, the lion lowered its head, as if in acknowledgement. It stepped aside, allowing Dorinia to approach the pedestal. With reverence, Dorinia took the royal staff in his hands. It was heavier than he had expected, but as he held it, he felt the weight of his responsibility lighten, as if the ancestors themselves were lifting it with him. The lion watched him for a moment longer, then turned and disappeared into the shadows of the cave, leaving Dorinia alone with the staff. He had succeeded. As he emerged from the cave, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the forest. The people of Zuwanda were waiting for him, their eyes filled with hope and pride. Dorinia raised the staff high above his head, and a great cheer rose from the crowd. He had faced the trials, overcome the obstacles, and proven his love for his people. Now, he was ready to be king.